All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the May edition of the Roave Hangout thing. Uh, well, the Roave Hangout, if you're joining us for the first time, is an informal, laid-back conversation on anything interesting happening in the PHP community. And today we have various members of the Roave team and the sort of pseudo member of Roave team, who is Rob Allen. So let's introduce the panel today. Antoine, do you want to go ahead and say hi?
Sure. Anton Hitchcock, also known as Max Niblet. I've been doing a lot of DevOps and infrastructure work in the last few years. I've also been helping out with the Sim Framework ecosystem. I do a lot of modules that I publish that we use, and most of it is also there in infrastructure. So check that out if it interests you.
Cool. Thank you. And Evan?
Hi, I'm Evan. I run this Roave thing that we're all talking about. And yeah, I've just kind of had my head down and been quiet and working on a bunch of client stuff lately. So I've kind of been MIA from the internet. That's what my tagline is on here right now. So yeah, but
nice.
That's who I am.
Cool. And Marco?
Oh, it's not Rob first. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
I'm just doing it in the order of my screen here. You know, that you're next on the line. So sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I had to ruin the combo. All right, I'm Marco. Also Roave team. Other than that, I currently am stuck in client work, which will hopefully stop soon when the conference season starts, because I really want to go to. And when I got time, I make libraries.
When you got time, that's like
all the time?
All the time.
Oh, shut up. I do it on the plane, you know.
Yeah.
It's really hard to work without a connection.
And last but not least, Rob, say who you are, please.
Hey all. Yeah, I do Slim stuff. I do some framework stuff. Loads of client work at the moment. All legacy. If it's an old system, I'm probably talking to it and trying to make a decent API out of some really horrible rubbish.
Nice. And you did a talk about APIs in Slim Framework just this last weekend, right, in Serbia?
I did. It was good fun.
How did that go? Yeah?
Yeah, I think so. It was a fairly packed room. I got to talk about APIs, tell people how I should write them, such that I want to integrate with them. Because what people are writing now is what I'm going to be integrating with in 10 years' time, and I'm going to be upset if they're rubbish still.
So I guess the opposite side to that is sort of loosely related to something Anna Felina tweeted about recently, which is where she wants everyone to carry on writing legacy code so she can keep refactoring it. So there's a balance there, maybe.
Maybe not.
Yeah. There's enough work for everyone, so.
Yeah.
And we've all got to do these new mistakes to make going forwards.
We're always making mistakes, right? And yeah, about talking about conferences, I guess I'll let Marco hand over this because last time he kind of took over on the conferences upcoming. So do you want to let everyone know what conferences we're going to be attending or speaking at in the next couple of months?
Well, I have to pass it back to you immediately because next Coast apparently, and since you are on the organizers list, you should probably talk about it.
Yeah, PHP South Coast is well, less than 2 weeks away now, which is kind of nice. We got lots of nice speakers coming to the Portsmouth in the UK. There's still tickets available, so if you do want to come to that, please do. And then I guess I'm kind of annoyed because PHP South Code is on. I can't make the PHP FW days, which you're going to be at, Marco, right?
Yeah, it's colliding, but you know, gotta pick choices. Hey, see the positive side. I paid for Laser Quest, so you folks can have Laser Quest, and you don't need to come to Ukraine and have fun with me. You know?
That's true. Roave are sponsoring the Laser Quest activity at PHP South Coast. So if you're doing that, make sure you thank us on Twitter.
and try to survive, please. Yeah, it's hard out there.
No guarantees there.
Yeah. Well, also, we don't want to be sponsoring something with casualties, so there's that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few other conferences coming up as well. We've got How Camp, which is mid-June, Odessa PHP conference mid-June as well, and then we've also got DWX Developer Week, Dutch PHP conference at the end of June, Coda Cruise in mid-July, PHP South Africa end of September, and beginning of October we've got PHP Esther over in Brazil, right?
Yeah, it's still a bit unclear where and when exactly, but it's being organized right now. Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so yeah, we're going to be at plenty of conferences up in the next few months. If you see us there, please do come up and say hi and chat to us about anything technical or otherwise, and we'll share a beer together or something. Okay, the next thing you like the beer part. The next thing I'll mention is the Roave mailing list. If you haven't signed up, please do. We'll tweet out a link and attach a link in the show notes so you can sign up. And we send a monthly update of just some sort of interesting technical topic. It's not too in-depth, but just register on the link we'll put in the show notes and so on. And it'd be great to have you sign up. Also, a very important project that I want to bring to everyone's attention is the Open Sourcing Mental Illness Project. They're doing a round of fundraising at the moment, and I think let me just load up the page. We've got just over $40,000 raised so far, which is really immense. I've got to say it's a really good effort, and this isn't just the PHP community. It's all across the tech community. Ed Finkler, who's running this not-for-profit organization, is doing a really great job there. There's loads of various donation levels. Please do check it out. It's on osmihelp.org. And in fact, one of our own ex-employees, Gary, is one of the board of directors, or whatever you want to call it. So I guess I'm obliged to say this, but it does mean a lot anyway, I think, to a lot of people. So please do check that out and consider donating if you can, because everything really does help. And you can get like stickers.
And honestly, we need help. We need help, all of us, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to put it jokingly here. Anyway,
you definitely need help, Marco.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna kick off like I did last month with the question for Evan. Is always the headline question. What's new, Evan?
What's new? Well, I mean, this last month I really kind of just had my head down. I've been focusing on building fun little horizontally scalable general purpose WebSocket server that is fault tolerant. So that's always fun stuff. That's basically what I've been immersed in. Other than that, I do have a couple of side things going on. I don't want to mention it too much, but I actually have a thing that I've started, a mental health support chat thing for something specific. I'm not going to plug it here, but it's actually got over 1,000 members and quite successful as well. But I just wanted to reemphasize that open sourcing mental health thing. Again, I think that's a really, really, really important initiative that means a lot to me personally. So just want to encourage everybody to check that out. Maybe if it's something you're not super interested in or isn't relevant to you, it's still worth looking into. So
that's kind of the goal of the project, though, is to raise awareness of these issues that not everyone really thinks about. Maybe they don't suffer from these kind of illnesses, and you don't think about it, right? But absolutely, it affects so many people in so many different ways. And yeah, I agree. I mean, I know people who are affected as well, and it is important, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a real thing. It's a real issue that can't just be overlooked. So,
and I would say that most people actually do know people with mental issues, but people don't talk about it, which is also one of the initiatives behind this, is to really get it out in the open and see there's nothing wrong with mental illness. It's just something that we have to start taking care of and not hiding because we're ashamed of it.
Yeah, that's what I think I'm most pleased about.
Yeah, and I think that I know so many people that have problems, me included, by the way. I have ADHD, for example, a very mild one. Pretty much just I would say the norm is pretty much the weird part. I would say that 20% of the people are what you could call the 100% norm. And so go out, talk about it. It's important.
Normal people are the minority, really.
Pretty much. Evan, just a thing on that. I was wondering, is the project you're working on open source, or is it just the notifications that I'm seeing?
I want to open source this. I think it'd be very cool. I still need to talk to the client about it. I'm not sure if I can get them on board, but it is general purpose. It's very, very general purpose. They're using it across several properties of theirs for very different use cases. And there's only really one comparable project out there that I've found. I can't think of the name right now. I wasn't even planning on talking about it too much, but I think it could be useful. I hope I can convince them to open source this. It's a neat little project. It's just uses RabbitMQ. It's highly scalable and fault tolerant. So you can just, like, if any of your servers go down, instantly reconnect to another one, and all the messages are still being broadcast. It integrates with sessions, whether that be PHP sessions or OAuth or something else. I've only written 2 adapters that they needed, but it's got a nice pluggable authentication system and stuff like that. So it's a really neat project. I hope that maybe they'll consider it, but of course it's always up to the client. But we'll see.
It's kind of cool. Well, let's hope the client makes his mind up about it. That would be cool.
Yeah. Actually, I haven't brought it up yet, but I've been trying to figure out how to bring it up. They're usually open to things like that as long as it's nothing proprietary, which in this case it's not at all. So
yeah, most of the contracts I write are written that if it's non-proprietary, then I've got the right to use it elsewhere and to open source if I need to.
Technically, it's in our contract too. I just, as a courtesy, like to ask for something like this, especially an ongoing project like this. It's taken some time, and
you want to keep the client happy, and if you'd like them to pay your invoices.
Right. Yep, that's kind of the important part.
That's always helpful. Yeah.
Always be focusing on the money.
Okay. I mean, talking about open source projects, Marco, you've been working on a new library package. Maybe a package is probably a better term for it. Do you want to tell us about what you've been doing?
I made this thing. From a superficial point of view, I made this thing called Roave Composer GPG Verify. From a very high level, 1,000 feet away point of view, it just makes Composer really hard to use. I mean, that's kind of the base idea.
Good pitch.
If you are a bit more into software maintenance, especially if you're in the Linux system, you know that anything that goes into a software repository has to be signed for authenticity. And the idea is really simple. Somebody could take my computer away, could make a release on Doctrine ORM, include some malicious code hidden somewhere, nobody notices, and then they can commit it under my name, and they would be able to then release it and publish it. And I would say tens of thousands of companies would have this software installed on their servers, because it's like a ticking bomb. It's hidden there. People that do this, they're I would say smart. Yeah. So when that happens, you have no real way to escape that, and anybody can impersonate anybody, because you can just change the GitHub the configuration. As long as you manage to get access to the GitHub account or to the deployment environment, you can basically hijack the entire project, and everyone is going to get malicious software downstream. Now, we are very, very far away from getting anywhere with package signing in PHP, but this is an initial attempt. If you have seen it recently on GitHub, sometimes you can see near the commits or the releases, there is a verified, a green icon that says verified. If that icon is there, that means that the author of the package that you are looking at, or the commits that you're looking at, is commits. And this means that you can pretty much trust it. I wouldn't say trust it. You have to obviously do some verification. It's not like that simple. But the idea is that you give some trust away. You know that person, therefore you trust that person. You import their public key, basically, which is going to be some sort of proof. Yes, I know that person. And when you have that public key and you say, yes, this public key is trustable, then you can download their packages. Otherwise, these packages are unverified. Anybody could have created them. And technically, from your point of view, they could be insecure. So we just made a library that does this verification as an installation step. And if some of the packages are not signed or are not signed with a trusted signature, you will get a failure and an error message just hopefully makes any sense.
So
hopefully,
for the composer JSON, all my dependencies, this package will check these. Each tag is signed before installing it on the composer update.
Correct. Well, technically, that is not yet possible. What it will do is it will first check out the packages locally via Git.
Right.
And then it will check against Git. And since we don't really have a zip file verification mechanism, especially for GitHub generated zip files, the idea is that currently it will fail if you didn't install via Git. So anything that is not a signed commit, anything that is not a Git dependency will cause a failure. If you have a package and it's signed, the commit or the tag is signed, then it will fail as well, as long as you don't know the key. As long when you import the key and you say, I'm going to trust this key, then it will allow you to continue installation. So it's not 100% secure, which is a problem, because honestly, security is either 100% or nothing. So there are holes in it, but we are exploring this. And I also talked with Jordi, with Seldek, the author of Composer, on how to make Composer generally hard to use.
So that's the goal, just to make everything hard to use.
Yeah, it will take a lot, because you have to consider that this what I built assumes that you have GPG installed, assumes that you have Git installed, assumes that you are in a Linux-like environment. These are all assumptions that will not work for a general purpose tool like Composer. You have to install it, I don't know, on a very exotic Unix system, on a very exotic Windows system. I mean, if you deploy on Windows,
a legacy IBM system.
I mean, it's your decision.
I was going to say all Linux systems, or all Windows systems are pretty much exotic, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But we also need to change the ecosystem for getting people to sign their tags as well.
Correct. Yeah, that is.
I know that Matthew does that with Zen Framework, and will kick out any tags that aren't signed.
Right.
That
is an amazing policy by Matthew, I think. Matthew Verifini, by the way. So Zen Framework when something is released and it's not signed, that tag has to be replaced or removed, and a new release has to happen, and that's really important.
I think we'd get into lots of trouble as well if we ever did that.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so the missing bit is the fact that you want this to work with zip files, which means that as a counterpart, we will need a release tool, and we will need to make this work with the OpenSSL extension, so that you don't need to install GPG and weird tools. It's going to be tricky. It's going to be complicated. This is just a first, like, just keep poking at the wall until you make a little dent, and then keep going from there.
Just keep us in trouble.
Yeah, it sounds like you're turning PHP into Java.
Sorry? We already did that. We already did that. We have a package called Roave / strict PHP. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the memo on that one.
Yeah. If you want to install it, it will basically turn PHP into Java. It's just that it will fail at runtime. But more failures, yes.
So, do you see this realistically as something that could eventually be built into Composer? Like, say one day we get into every package maintainer gets into the habit of signing all their releases. Do you think that could ever actually make it into Composer core and become the norm, i.e. to use always only signed things? Even if not necessarily the implementation you've written, but something based on it. The idea seems
I mean, the problem with all this is that, let's face it, anything that has to do with GPG is terrible UX wise. There is a tool which is making it fairly easy. If you've ever used it, it's called Keybase, which makes it a bit nicer. So you can install the thing and you have a UI, and signing somebody else's private key means following them. So it's kind of interesting. But we are really far from getting signing and anything that has to do with crypto signatures mainstream. But the point is, we saw it recently multiple times. Attack vectors, they find the weak spot. And once they found one, they're going to use it. And I think that the signature of released packages is at least a fail-safe mechanism that we should at least at some point have. Because right now we trust GitHub and we trust Packagist. But we don't really trust the source of the package. And honestly, what I could do is I could find a maintainer of a successful open source project, like kidnap them and do something, whatever, and get access to their environment and do a release and take over a lot of other computers. That's a theoretical scenario, but that's the problem. We are trusting a lot right now. We are really trusting the environment a lot. It is unlikely, but it is a possibility.
Well, I mean, there is almost 5 billion packages installed from Packagist since 2012. I got that from the statistics page on Packagist, so hopefully it's accurate. But I mean, that's a huge number of packages. It could already have been, a theoretical exploit made that just never made it popular, I suppose. But
we probably already had this happening and nobody noticed because we don't have a mechanism for checking. I mean,
I think it's more likely to.
Yeah, from a package and GitHub perspective. Sorry, I'm talking over. From a packages and GitHub perspective, everything is fine. But you're installing.
This can't be a problem that's only related to PHP, though. It has to be related to every open source product published on GitHub. Is my main concern. So wouldn't it be something that we should be advocating GitHub to solve in a better way?
Well, I mean, look at the SSL thing. We had the same deal with SSL on all of the package managers for the different languages. We had this in PyPy or NPM and Packagist, and they all went through the SSL thing. And it's going to be the same kind of deal here. I don't think there's like a central authority like GitHub that's necessarily responsible for driving the adoption of this. It needs to be community driven, and there are multiple communities, so it kind of needs to be a multifaceted effort.
I'm saying that GitHub has a good central point, given the fact
that's
that
the point. We have a central point. We have a central point. We trust it with SSL. We trust the mechanism, but we don't trust the actual provider of the package. And in the Debian world and anything that is a surrogate from it, there is a key ring where this kind of stuff happens. They trust and distrust keys, and that's how it works. And they've been doing it for ages. And the problem is that it's mostly these people with very, very long beards, and they know what they're doing. But most of the typical open source maintainer is the guy or person that just goes on the computer, smashes something together, and then just does a push, and then leaves for beer or whatever.
Is that why you have a short beard?
Yeah, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions actually from the chat. The first one, I'll just throw this out there openly. It's from Frederick van Brabant. Are we secretly being controlled by a race of shape-shifting lizards in high places?
Did you check their GPT key? I mean, if you sign their key, maybe, yes.
I would say we can neither confirm nor deny this.
I'll try it later.
If anybody, it's Marco.
Okay, and I do actually have a bit more of a serious question, perhaps. Not to say, Frederick, your question wasn't serious, but I don't think we know the answer to that fully, perhaps. Anyway, I do have another question here from MilSF1. In this day and age of full stack JS frameworks, MEAN, etc., or MEAN, I guess you should say that, does PHP still have a distinct role?
Yeah, I'll throw 80% of the internet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Evan, take it away.
Well, I mean, I haven't actually looked in a few months, but last I checked, it was large majority here. Let's see. I've got it. Oh, that's actually PHP versions, which would look promising. But let's do that.
Looks good.
Yeah. 82.6% of server-side programming languages for websites as W3, and this is from W3 Techs, which they have information on how they do the spidering. But I'd say, yeah, very, 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 very relevant role still. And I don't see that changing. I haven't seen that changing in the last decade, even for a very long time. So
I think in part, I mean, we have a lot to owe for that to WordPress and Drupal and CMS packages, CMS software like that. I wonder sort of what percentage of those are like the bespoke, anything beyond like a basic CMS driven site, or whether like most of those applications are just
WordPress.
Internal applications. I don't know. It's an interesting question for sure.
There is
Rob, do you have an opinion here?
Yeah, I think JavaScript is the only one that's likely to displace PHP due to its prevalence on the browser. The other languages are really, really small. Even in the app space, there aren't that many Ruby shops compared to the PHP shops, etc. JavaScript is an odd one because... Sorry?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. JavaScript is an odd one because of the investment by all the browser makers in making it quick and, more importantly, making it memory efficient. One of the nice things about PHP 7 in particular was how we cut the memory down. When I say we, I mean the people who actually did the work. I just,
yeah, right.
But yeah, PHP 7 is so much better at memory, and you have to deploy in the cloud, as we call it nowadays. We're paying for memory more than anything else. Look at your AWS costs. It's all about how much memory you're using as to how much money you pay. And PHP 7 is such a better tool for that than most of the other languages out there now. till you go to the compiled ones, which are a whole different kettle of fish. JavaScript is quite good at that, so I can see it being used, but there is a whole load of deployment challenges compared to getting a PHP website running. Getting a node server running and keeping it running is a whole level of difficulty compared to getting the PHP server running.
Yeah, it is. It's much less plug and play.
Yeah, very much so.
The WebSocket server thing that I was describing, that's Node, and I hate to say it, but performance was really the driver for that decision, and not quite as simple. I mean, there's some more headaches. It's not too bad once you're kind of used to it and into it. But what's intriguing to me is that I agree in principle that like there's more investment behind JavaScript, even as a server-side language. I mean, just the engines themselves, and the adoption is it should be huge because I mean, just it's a browser language that everybody's already familiar with, so it should just be a very, very, very natural step to the server side. But I mean, looking at May 2017 server-side programming language statistics, it's showing 0.4% JavaScript. I don't know how much of that is just load balancers hiding Node.js apps. That's another interesting thing about the way that these kinds of statistics are gathered. PHP is always very loud about, hey, I'm powered by PHP in the headers, but you don't see that so much with JavaScript, and you almost always have like, you know, some sort of reverse proxy thing in front, and it's a little bit less obvious to spiders what's using JavaScript. So I don't know how skewed these statistics are. That might be a whole nother thing, but it seems like it should be much higher than what it is. Given how long Node has been around at this point, and I mean, not super long, but it's had some time to mature.
There is a very huge advantage in PHP that is not going away. Well, there's two. The one that you can just reload the page and forget about memory management or as much as we have like completely senseless and irresponsible people when it comes to coding and just smash everything together. PHP is just gonna kill everything, garbage collect everything, and that's it. So anyone can build any page with the most horrible approach that does 2,000 queries to load an index page, as long as it makes the customer happy.
Yeah.
Really, nobody cares.
I just want to reinforce that point, actually. This kind of similar question came up in Serbia, where someone asked Rasmus after his talk, what about making PHP into an application server? And his response is something along the lines of, well, right now PHP allows you to write crappy code and it will just work because it is that shared nothing architecture. It will, as you say, it just destroys everything, and it's a really forgiving language. And yeah, he said, I can't remember his words, so I'm probably quoting badly, but he's pretty much like, that's probably never going to happen, and it's such a fundamental change in the way that the language works as well. Quite a big rewrite, I expect. So
the whole shared nothing architecture of PHP is one of its USPs. I was really glad that Rasmus said that, because the worst thing that could possibly happen is if we ever got an app server.
I would agree. I'd have to agree with that. I mean, just writing the socket server and the things that I had to take into account, because this is a process that's going to be running for months or years. And you really, really, really just have to think about every single variable, every single array, how it grows, how it shrinks, you have to keep all of it. And a lot of that, mental effort just kind of goes out the window with PHP. I don't want to say completely, like you still have to be a little cognizant of it, but there's a lot of things you just really don't have to focus on because you don't have these long processes that just last for ages and ages.
Yeah, you have to be explicit about it. Like when you're dealing with shared state, etc. Sorry, come on, James.
Yeah. I was going to say you can have long-running processes.
You can,
just turn off garbage collection.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's not long-running processes. That's very slow processes. Then that's the
There is also work on the PHP Process Manager, which is supposed to be I think Marco's got more experience with that than I have.
I don't.
Oh crap! It's supposed to replace PHP FBM, and then you have PHP running as a long-running process. You get to avoid all the bootstrapping, but then we have all the bad sides of it we've just discussed: memory management, connection pooling. There's like so many issues you have to think about when you're a first programmer you just don't really care about or know about.
That brings me to the biggest advantage, in my opinion, to PHP.
A different process manager that you can do.
Yeah, there is one big advantage which was brought up on I think Hack Day 2015. It was one of those days where they really presented a lot of the Facebook internal tooling, and they were talking about Hacklang. And the point that makes PHP so successful is that you just go in, edit a page, save it, reload the page, and you see the result. As long as you have a long-running process, you have to kill the server, restart it, and look at the page again. Now, we are used to this process where we write the tests, we write the specification, we go through all of that. But at the end of the day, if we want to move a letter to the right or to the left by 5 pixels, and that depends on the page that we are editing, we don't want to restart the server every time we do that. And you can invent as many live reload mechanisms as you want, but they're going to be more fragile than the sure nothing architecture there. So other languages are absolutely compelling when it comes to very formal processes, but
Java.
They come at a high cost when it comes to iteration. Yeah, Java. You're doing Java right now, James. How do you like it?
I spend most of the time writing tests and end-to-end tests, and then eventually I'll actually come and load the page. And hopefully, if the test pass, the page will load and work as expected. But yeah, I mean, there's like with Java, there's the build step that you have to do every time you make a change. There's things you can do to speed that up and deal with it a bit kind of more smoother. But it was really taking me back to when I did like C and C++. That I was like, wow, I haven't had to compile something in years. Which is kind of weird.
It's a different mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Another interesting thing actually was, again, stealing from Rasmus's talk, was the original intention for PHP was to be a templating language and call business logic in a compiled C binary. So you'd write all the business logic in a shared object, and you just call a function from the PHP templating language as it was back when it was initially a thing. But no one wanted to do that because actually it was easier to not have to write all your business logic and recompile it every time. And there was a shortage of C developers and so on. Shocking. But anyway, I'm stealing lots from Rasmus's talk, but there's probably recordings out. So.
It's ironic that we're going back that way to a certain extent nowadays with writing our websites in JavaScript and then talking to an API.
Yeah,
and all the business logic is now being centralized.
Yes, very interesting discussions. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question, and I'm going to start off with you, Rob, because I want to wrap up soon, not let things go on too long. But seeing as we've got you here, Rob, I'm going to take advantage of your presence and ask you about sort of what you think about the technical differences or similarities in the Zend Expressive framework, which is one of my favorite frameworks at the moment. It's a useful tool, and Slim, of course, which you are a maintainer of.
So we're going to swap gears completely now, aren't we?
Yeah, I know. You thought you would get away without me asking about that, right?
Well, they're basically the same thing, aren't they? I mean, a micro framework is a micro framework. We've not got a lot of code in them, just realistically. Of the two, Slim is more opinionated. We only have one router in Slim. It's fast route. You don't get any other choices. Expressive, you can plug in the router you want to use. Similarly with the DI container, same thing. Slim, it's Pimple. Though you can actually change the DI container with Slim, but we supply Pimple anyway. Expressive, you have to pick the one you want. Generally, you should pick Service Manager, of course, but it is up to you.
By the way, sorry about that. Symfony 3.3 came out and it implements PSR 11 on the container.
Ooh, that's nice.
That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, Slim just requires a PSR 11 container and you're done. So same basic idea there. Error handling, the same thing. Slim actually has one that isn't whoops, so it's actually quite nice to look at. That could just be just me, but I intensely dislike the look of whoops. I find it very difficult to deal with. Slim's error handling is more sophisticated in some ways as well. Like if you send an accept header for JSON or XML, then you'll get an output in those formats, which you can see my bias towards writing APIs.
That's quite handy, yeah.
I
like that.
Yeah, if you don't have it,
times.
yeah, and you shouldn't have to solve it. It should be just built in. And we're seeing Matthew building the API problem middleware for the next app, Agility, which will probably be expressive based. And that's going along the same route, which is quite interesting. Nice thing about expressive that Slim doesn't do. So expressive separates routing from dispatching. So when you create your middleware pipeline with expressive, you have to explicitly pipe the dispatching and pipe the routing. And you've got to put them in the right order. If you put them in the wrong order, bad things happen.
Yeah.
In Slim, you can't do that. The two are built together. However, we think that's a good idea. So I expect Slim 4 will have the same sort of options as Expressive does in that state.
So on that detail, I had to implement an authentication layer which does something like get the route name, match it against the map before running a dispatch. Is that something that is a technical limitation right now? That it can be done that way?
Slim runs in two modes. You can either do the routing before you run the middleware pipeline or at the end of the middleware pipeline before dispatch. Okay. But it can only be at one end or the other. Okay. So the real flexibility of Expressive is you can do some of it before routing, then you can route, then you can do some middleware that tests the route, and then you actually dispatch. So yeah, Expressive is definitely more flexible in that sense. In Slim, it's one or the other. That's about it, really. When your controller action, or whatever you want to call it, the final thing that runs, Expressive is a standard piece of middleware, so you get the same signature as your normal middleware. With Slim, you don't get the next parameter or I think it's called delegate in the new PSR.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You don't get delegate in your final piece of middleware, your controller action in Slim. Instead, you get the list of root arguments as your third parameter. We'll probably keep that because that's slightly more pragmatic for normal users.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting one because I guess that's actually just down to how the pipe is operated between the two frameworks. Because basically we've got a final handler, I think it's called, or not court handler or something like that, which again is exactly the same signature, but is just designed to stop you falling out the bottom of the world and ending up nowhere, I guess. Which I guess that's just a different approach to how Slim's done it. But of course, that means that it's not actually a middleware.
Correct. Yeah. Slim's root callable is not a middleware.
It's kind of like a leaf in your execution path, so it makes sense. At the end of the day, even PSR 15, if people implement it, it's because you are reusing pieces that plug together, and they usually are not the leaf part of the execution path anyway. Right. So it makes sense. I mean,
when you get to the very bottom, you have to return a response. Calling next makes no sense.
Stupid question. What is PSR 15?
That's a standardization of the middleware. So we had remember the strategility middleware. That's basically taking that and trying to get it to a more abstracted approach. It's still no point something version, but the new PSR rules require that some libraries implement it before it can be accepted as a PSR. So they went ahead and implemented it first.
Yes, Slim 4 will do that one as well. It's a little bit more complicated. I think we're going to get more support calls as a result of doing it, which is a bit of a shame. But
I'd argue it's
equally, it is-
simpler.
well, it is if you're steeped in object-oriented knowledge.
But then
You know,
you
you-
get a request, and the delegate is just the next, if you like, the next middleware. But you're dropping the response. I mean, that's the major change I see, is that you're dropping the response.
Yes,
object.
which means you need to, if you want to return a response, you've now got to create your own. So you've now got to know how to generate a response object, which
If
you've never
you do
needed
that
to
with the
know before.
middleware, yeah.
Correct. So if you're middleware short circuits, you now need to know everything there is to know about generating a response, instantiating it, and getting it out the other way. You have to import it into your class because middleware has to be a class nowadays. It is more correct. Yeah. It is much harder to get it wrong, but it is
anonymous classes.
There's more stuff there.
Classes.
Nobody uses anonymous classes.
I use them all the way.
Yes.
Yeah, I was about to say, have you ever used them?
I use them in testing.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Nobody is using it who would also be using Slim, or relatively speaking. You've got to be fairly steeped in your object-oriented design patterns, in your development methodologies, and Slim has got a very wide base of users. Of course, now I get loads of comments of all the people using anonymous classes in Slim. Feel free to tell me about your usage. I'd love to know. I'd love to see it.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for going into that, Rob. It's interesting to hear your viewpoints, especially as you kind of work with both sides of that coin as well. So it's good to kind of hear other people.
I'm gonna mix this for a sec. Just wanted to make clear one thing for the fact that you get rid of the dependency on the response is really important when you plug it into what Antoine was saying before about PHP PM. If we use something like a process manager and you want to use asynchronous programming for creating responses and passing them around, you don't want to use the diachrous response. You want to use something that knows about async stuff and works well with it. So yeah, just wanted to plug it in. So it's it's a bit of a how do you say, teaser there? Mind teaser, I guess.
There's a PSR 7 factories thing going on somewhere as well, and I think that will become more relevant as we get used to PSR 15's middleware.
Looks messy. Something don't interface factories.
Cool. All right. That's pretty much all we've got time for today, I'm afraid. So we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in the Hangout. Thank you for the questions as well. It's really appreciated. And there's actually one that we couldn't get to, but we're pretty much out of time now. But thank you very much, everyone, and we shall see you next month. We'll announce the date, and of course, don't forget to sign up to the mailing list and donate to open sourcing mental illness. That's osmihelp.org/2017 campaign, 2017-campaign. And I'll put the link in the show notes as well, so you don't have to type that down quickly. All right. Thanks very much, folks, and we shall see you next month. Farewell.
Cheers.
Ciao.
Cheers.